Wee introduction then, to let you know what this is all about. Obviously the club are celebrating a wonderful career with Stirling Albion for Ross McGeachie. We'll get into the details of that in terms of how long he's been with the club and the number of games he's played, and now that we can say it, the number of goals that he's scored, because yesterday's featured goal was quite spectacular, I'm sure you all agree. So it's a small question and answer session. I have with me here Tom Ogilvie, who was one of the Stirling Albion youth development coaches when the whole programme started so many years ago that I can't quite remember. It was somewhere around about the mid-1990s. My name's Stewart Taylor and I had the privilege of being head of youth here at Stirling Albion, and of course the main feature is Ross McGeachie, who, as you all know, has had a terrific career for the club. Ross is a wee bit nervous, as you might imagine, so we've got a few easy questions just to get things underway, and I'm sure that we'll get into the serious stuff sooner or later. So Ross, could you tell us quickly, first answer, quick fire answers, do you like tea or coffee?
Coffee.
You prefer coffee. I bet you drink a fair bit.
Well, I drink tea as well, but I...
And what about soft drinks? Iron Brew or Coca-Cola? What's your
It's a
preference?
close one. Probably go just slightly cola. Since they changed the Iron Brew recipe, it's not the same.
I don't know if you've got a cat or a dog as a family pet, but if you were to have a pet, what would you have, a cat or a dog?
Dog. Aye, definitely a dog. Come from a dog family, so we've got a wee dog now called Nala, so definitely dog.
Okay. And as far as your holidays are concerned, where would you pick to go? Would it be Spain, or would it be Greece, or somewhere a wee bit further away?
I don't know, to be honest. Well, to be honest, I've been to Florida once, which I really enjoyed, so if I was to pick somewhere to go back to, it would be somewhere in America, at least probably.
Disney World?
Aye,
On
big
the
Mickey
rides
Mouse
when you're
fan.
And on the same theme there, what's the best place you've visited then? Would it be Florida, or have you been elsewhere?
No, probably Florida, to be fair, aye. Aye, I would give Florida the accolade at the top.
Now, you parked your car next to mine this morning, and I would have to say that it made me pretty embarrassed. Your favourite make of car, I presume, is the one that you're driving just now.
I'm enjoying that car at the moment. I don't know, to be honest. I'm into my motors, so there's a few cars. Quite like some Mercedes, Audis, your usual. Obviously I'm driving a Jaguar now, but it might sound like a bit of an old man's car, but I'm feeling a bit older now. I'm getting older, so maybe fits.
Right, on the music side then, if you have to choose a favourite type of music, what would it be?
To be honest, a bit of everything. I've not really got like a specific genre I kind of stick to, so usually whatever's in the charts. Or
Does that include country and western?
more recently it has actually, aye. Maybe a wee bit more country, a wee bit of Chris Stapleton, I'm sure his name is, but which is a bit rarer for me. Usually it was kind of American rap, hip hop, so a wee bit of everything.
Okay, last question in this part then, what's your favourite food? I know how your mother's an excellent cook.
Be careful with your answer.
I know, well, to be honest, if I was going out to a restaurant or whatever, I'd mostly pick a steak, maybe a wee fillet steak with a couple of sides, so I'll go with steak. I know it's a safe bet as well, but...
Okay, over to you then, Tom. You're getting a chance to
So, yeah,
start the ball rolling.
no problem. So as well as obviously part-time football, what's your job? What do you do?
So day to day, I'm an electrician. I work for a company called Mitten, so we do all the kind of maintenance on B&Qs. They have the Morrison's contract, do some co-op work, and we do the little McCall's shops all over Scotland. So, plenty of driving involved, to be honest, but basically toting about the country, just changing lights and replacing sockets.
I remember when you were a youth player, your father's company, the company that your father worked for, and you started your career, was Neil Hart.
Yep.
He gave you a good start in terms of your electrician career.
Aye, no, definitely. Aye, that's so. I wouldn't say I ever grew up wanting to be an electrician, but I've kind of, to be honest, I still don't know what I want to do. That's me getting to nearly 29. So, aye, no, it gave us a good start. gave me an apprenticeship to go through, so good bit of experience before moving on to the company I'm in now, so I know it stood me in good stead.
Good. And the last question, before we get on to the football, I had the pleasure of meeting a young lady while she was watching a game of football, and I asked her what she was doing watching the Stirling Albion game. Of course, you could maybe identify who that young lady was.
Aye, I've heard the story. She came home and told me I spoke to a nice man today in the stand, and he was asking who I was watching, and she obviously said me, so aye, that's my girlfriend, Brooklyn. Been together a wee while now, to be fair, maybe.
Good,
maybe
well,
too long.
hopefully that'll continue. So, we'll get on to the serious stuff now, and that's the football, which brings us here. My first question for you was, when was your first involvement with Stirling Albion, and how did it come about?
So, well, I'm obviously talking to the man who kind of made it happen, but
Yeah, I made sure that question.
so, as you well know, there was trials coming up, so I think it was under 13s team was just about to start, so there was going to be 2 or 3 trials involved to hopefully try and get into one of those teams. But during a PE session, I think you were just covering a teacher that day, so we had a wee game of football, and we started speaking. Obviously, you're watching. It was myself and Mark Sharp, so I think it was just a game of sevens or something in PE, and you were mentioning the Stirling Albion trials. Kind of said I think you should go for them. Back then I didn't think it was, well, some might say I'm still not good enough, but I didn't think I was good enough to go for that kind of level where I was just playing boys club, playing with Riverside, as obviously Tom knows as well, for being the coach of was it Riverside Reds you were, and Riverside Blues, so kind of rivals but the same club.
Exactly.
So I went for the trials, and the rest kind of history.
Yeah, well, obviously it was a long haul to get through to where you're at now, but certainly I'm pleased that I was involved in the very start of it, so you've done very well. Tom, could I ask you to ask the next question? Although it's got my name down against it, you'll maybe be able to give me an answer to this, I'm not sure.
So how many first team appearances have you made, Ross?
I don't know specifically how many, but I know it's probably over 300 now.
Over 300?
Yeah, so I don't know, I couldn't break that down into starts or sub appearances, but I'm sure I'm closer to a couple of other well-known names like Ross Forsyth, stuff like that, so aye, I'm getting up there a wee bit. I'm sure the top's like 500 and odd appearances, so I'd be doing well to catch him or beat that. But
any memorable games?
Probably, to be honest, just the most memorable ones will just be playing against, I'm a Rangers fan, so be playing against Rangers at Ibrox twice. I've been lucky enough to play twice. Once obviously when they were in our division, but it was kind of made more special with the 140 year anniversary, so it was a sellout. So probably just against, and then obviously we got promotion, I think it was 13-14 season, which was, it's filled with kind of happy memories, but at the same time there's a wee bit that's been taken away from it, because I remember being on the bench for the playoff final. I had kind of rolled my ankle a couple of weeks before, and I think it was actually Lee Hamilton, he went in and played played really well, so he kept his place and I was on the bench with a heavily strapped ankle. But no, just to be part of that, is because I was still a young boy as well, so just to be part of that was very memorable.
And Lee, if I'm correct in saying, is he a cousin of you?
No, he's not a cousin, he's just one of my best mates. Aye, so for a good few years now, me and Lee pallied a bit. Aye, there was a few years
since you were young boys. So in terms of your youth career at the Albion, who do you remember? I mean, obviously you remember Mr. Taylor of course.
To be honest, I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Mr. T.
What other coaches that
but there's been a few across the years, so forgive me for not remembering his second name, but there was a guy called Ian who I remember having right at the start. Ali Breton, had obviously Graham Donald and David Binney in the kind of latter years of like youth football, so 17s, kind of 19s, who were brilliant to work with as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've probably forgot a couple of people in amongst that, but there's been a good few throughout the years.
And any players that you remember? Players that have come through with you, but also players that perhaps didn't make it?
Well, to be honest, I've had chats with Mr T before about it as well, because he'll remember every one of them as well. But a couple of players, like, well, even Danny Ash, he went on to make a few first team appearances. He was probably a couple of years older than me. There was Stephen Day who came through with me, Stephen Forbes. I can't really think much more. There was a few chatting on the first team door, run about then, whether they went on to actually make it or not, or went elsewhere or whatever. But a couple that I remember.
Just a wee bit of background on that. I do have access to the records from quite a number of years, and without going into details, I'd certainly could safely say that in the time that the Youth Development Department has been in existence, up to current position, there's more than 80 players have come through the Youth Development and played for Stirling Albion's first team. Some only maybe played a few games, others, like Ross, have managed to have a significant contribution, but it's certainly an indication of the value of the Youth Development Department that the club has supported for all these years. So great that these boys have had the chance to come through. You've had quite a number of players playing alongside you. I don't know how extensive this list will be, but who has managed the club since you started playing first team football?
So I don't know if there's been that many. There's been a few, but every time I've been asked this question before as well, and people are like, I bet there's been a few managers since you've been kind of coming through and stuff. So well, first and foremost was Greg McDonald, and it was obviously Greg who gave me my debut. He's Fife manager now at the moment. So we've had Greg McDonald, we had Stewart McLaren and Marty Corrigan, and Marty was his assistant, but kind of went on to be a kind of caretaker manager later on as well. Then we would have Dave Mackay. I got on well with Dave Mackay as well. I had a good kind of relationship with him, and he's obviously more of an assistant at the moment. I think he's at Dunfermline.
Yes, yes.
With James McPake. Then we've had Kevin Rukovic, who I was obviously Kevin's captain here as well, so had a good relationship with him. And then obviously with current manager Dan Young. So I've had, to be honest, what is that, 5?
Yeah.
Maybe
5, 6.
5, 6, maybe Marty is putting into that list as well, but every one of them's kind of played their part, I suppose, as well.
So, I mean, the obvious question, Ross, is which managers do you think's had the biggest influence in your career?
See, I don't know. Obviously, I think everybody's played wee roles here and there. I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint it to one person, because you're always learning as well, and you're at different stages of your career. So they've all played their part along the years, including Darren now as well, the current manager.
Yeah.
Just for the record then, where was your debut game? Can you remember who it was against and where it was?
Aye, so it was a beautiful stadium, Clifton Hill, is it?
Albion Rovers.
Albion Rovers, aye. So we were Albion Rovers away. I think it was last game of 2011-2012 season. I can't quite mind the score, to be honest. I know we won. I think it might be 2-1. I'm sure Stephen Day actually scored that day.
I think he did.
So, no, I remember it well. I remember playing against an absolute unit, a guy. Is it John Gemmell?
Alright.
The big striker. So unfortunately he's just had a bad injury, so I think he's later on in his career, and it's a big injury. I think he's just down in his Achilles, but I can remember feeling like a wee boy against him with some of the kind of shoulder to shoulder challenges, and it was a kind of welcome to man's football, or men's football, sorry, should I say.
Yeah. Well, maybe Cliftonville wasn't the Clifton Hill, sorry.
I wasn't sure if I had got that wrong there.
Clifton Hill. There's a Cliftonville in
Northern
Ireland as well. So maybe that wasn't the grandest of stadiums. What is the biggest stadium that you've played in?
So as I mentioned before, it's going to be Ibrox. But going away for Stirling Albion and kind of start, I'm sure we might have a conversation about this, but going into Scotland schoolboy football, we played at St James's Park against England, so it'll be between those two, two of the best stadiums I've played in.
Tom?
So what would you say your biggest achievement in the game, and what have you been part of winning as a player?
Just as we spoke about there, to be honest, the only thing I've really won in football, or not even won, but because I've not got any silverware for it, but we've obviously been promoted in 2013 or 14, I think it was. I'm sure it was run about then, or 14, 15, I don't know. Need to have a look at that. I maybe should have looked at that before I came here. But so obviously winning promotion through the playoffs away to East Fife, and then as I mentioned there as well, Scotland schoolboys. Just that is an honour to be involved with obviously international football as well.
Yeah. How many caps did you get at schools?
Well, you only get one physical cap, but I think I
Not too expensive.
maybe played 3 or 4 games.
3 or 4 games, yeah.
I remember missing the first one. I'm sure it was against Northern Ireland at Torry Glen,
Right.
and I had a wee injury, so I'm trying to work on that to get through that, but it came too soon.
Can you remember who scored goals that night, big time?
Well, I'm guessing Shankland is probably one of them. So
And that leads to the next question, who else played in that team that's gone on to have a career in senior football?
well, obviously Lawrence Shankland. There was a few, to be fair. Lawrence Shankland's the standout one, who was obviously playing at a good level and doing it kind of consistently. They now doing well for Hearts. We've had we've had Ryley McGeachie, who he's still playing at the moment. He's just actually went from Dumbarton to Clyde on loan. He's had a decent career so far.
A name?
Greg Dockery.
Yes, one of your Rangers men.
I was trying to get the name out there. Obviously he's doing very well for himself. I think he's still at Hull.
He's at Hull.
Still at Hull, so he
Yeah.
came through Rangers and went down to Hull and seems to be doing well down there. So there's a few big hitters in there.
Yeah. So you said that the game at Ibrox was probably the biggest crowd. Can you indicate how many were at that game?
Aye, so the only reason I remember, and it would have been a third division game back then because it was when Rangers were in the division, but I remember it being the 140 year anniversary, so that obviously helped. They sold it out, and it was a really good atmosphere. That was the first time obviously I'd ever played in any kind of atmosphere like that, so that always sticks in the mind. But was
it not a good result for Stirling Albion?
No, that day.
No.
And on that season, I'm sure we beat them and drew twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then the game at Ibrox, the one we're talking about now, we got beat 2-0.
Right.
But it wasn't an embarrassment. It was, I think they scored their first goal in the 60-something minute and then scored later on again. So, no, that's the one that sticks in the mind, atmosphere-wise and crowd-wise.
So other managers at Stirling Albion, obviously there's lots of other people around, Tricia, Mrs Shaw, Peter McKenzie. Any stories, any characters that you'd like to share with us?
I'll start with Mrs Shaw. So she definitely had a big influence on me. For the first kind of moment I stepped into the first team, I was getting letters through the door, so I think I've got 2 or 3, I've got them in my drawer, so they'll be tucked away for years to come. But just encouraging words, that's just encouraging me to go and kick on and hopefully try and cement a place in the first team. But I've had many a conversation with her up here in this room. Who used to come up here for food, and Mrs Shaw was a character. She always had a story. She always had an opinion to give anyway, whether you wanted it or not, you were getting it. But I think she took it lighter on me. I don't think she really gave me it as hard as she gave other players.
You were definitely one of her favourites.
And somebody who's been doing a great deal of work for you in recent weeks in particular, I'm sure you want to mention Tricia.
Aye, of course, Tricia. So Tricia's actually sponsored me. We were actually chatting about this earlier. I think she's sponsored me every year since I've been involved in the first team. So she's always in the programme next to my wee mugshot. Tricia, obviously family and that as well. My mum and dad couldn't do it without them either. Loads of people I'll obviously forget to mention people in the heat of the moment now, but there's loads of people who have played their part in getting me to where I am now.
Certainly, I know that your mum and dad come to all the home team games, or home games for the team, and I do remember that they always sat beside one other special man who maybe didn't feature coaching you. I'm sure you'd like to make mention of the person.
Aye, Mr. Eccles, David Eccles, for obviously yous that don't know who Mr. Eccles, I'm referring to Mr. Eccles, heavily involved right throughout the youth. He's a gentleman first and foremost, taken far too soon. Obviously I had a good relationship with him as well, because I used to travel when we had the Scotland schoolboy camps. I used to travel with him, so he would pick me up and we would go through together, and it usually was only me and him for this area. Even just coming through the youth, he was just a big gentleman guy who you always heard, who was always positive, big deep voice. I can picture it in my head now, I can picture his voice, but he always had a calming effect on everything and a positive outlook on everything.
Yes, a sad miss to all of us who knew him. Featuring on your testimonial year now, Ross, I know that you have included a local charity. Could you maybe explain to the folks watching what that is and how did that come about?
Yeah, so we're working alongside Plus, who are a local charity who help kind of children and young adults with disabilities in all sorts of ways. I've got 3 ambassadors, so we're going to actually do a wee challenge. So I've got Scott, who's Trisha's nephew. I've got Jack, who's a wee fan. He loves Lee, but then Lee left, so I've ended up his favourite by default, I think. But so he comes to all the games, and we've got Lara as well. All suffer from different kind of disabilities and things kind of holding them back a wee bit maybe in life, but plus do a lot of good work. So we're doing a challenge. Scott's he's got an all-terrain wheelchair, so he's going to go and do 10 miles round Loch Katrine.
Fantastic.
So I don't know if I would manage 10 miles round there, but
I think he's
Maybe in a wheelchair.
so he's going to go and do that, and then Jack and Lara, they're going to go and do laps of Kings Park. I think they're maybe doing 5 miles. So Lara's predominantly in a wheelchair as well. I think she mentioned she would maybe jump at it and do a few laps out there as well. So we're trying to raise money for that, so we're going to hopefully raise a bit of money for a good cause.
Well, it's certainly a very generous act upon you to consider other less fortunate people when your testimonial year could be for you and you alone, but you've decided to share it out, and I'm sure the fans appreciate that gesture.
So just going back to the football, I mean obviously you're still a relatively young man. So what are your ambitions? What do you want to achieve still in football?
Well, firstly, I don't feel that young anymore. I'm starting to feel a bit older, especially after playing on that AstroTurf in Annan yesterday. Got a few wee aches and pains. No, to be honest, you've got a lot of ups and downs in football, probably more downs than ups. So I'd like to go and hopefully get a wee bit of silverware at some point, whether that's hopefully this season. We've got ourselves in a decent position now, but there's still plenty of games and points to play for, so we'll just take that as a game at a time and see where we end up. Hopefully it is, well, hopefully, I don't know what it jinx us. Hopefully we can end up either going up through the playoffs or winning the league, but other than that, just playing at a higher level as I can, for as long as I can.
I'm going to prompt you a wee bit to say that hopefully we will have a kind of special game maybe towards the start of next season. Hopefully we'll be promoted, and maybe your opponents that you would like to play against might also be promoted. Could you explain what your hopes are for your testimonial game?
So hopefully we're going to be organising a match against Dundee. Obviously there's a lot of organisational stuff that the committee, yourself included, are going to hopefully try and sort out. So I'd imagine there's a lot involved in the two schedules, whether that's our schedule and Dundee, try to tie them in. So we're hoping to get Dundee just mainly kind of due to my dad. I quite like the wee sentimental value of playing against my dad's old team, because he played there for 13 seasons. So we'll see if we can get that organised, and hopefully that's something to look forward to in the future.
Well, we're certainly trying our best. I've called in a few favours from Gordon Strachan, who I met a few times in a different life. So hopefully Gordon will be able to help us to fix up a game. Hopefully it'll be a pre-season fixture, and hopefully they might be in the Premiership and we'll be in the next league up as well. So other than football, ambitions for the rest of your life. You've got a long time ahead of you. What do you hope will happen in the next foreseeable future?
I don't know, to be honest. Obviously usual, maybe build a family myself one day, me and Brooke, maybe, if she sticks by me. If she can put up with me for long enough. But just ambitions out with football is just kind of building a family myself one day. I'm not talking about that right now, by the way, Brooke, if you're watching. So now's maybe too soon, but at some point in the future, hopefully.
Well, that's certainly something exciting to look forward to, and we would wish you all the best with that. So I think, Ross, you've done very well. I'm sure the fans watching this would agree. Well, that brings us to the end of our short question and answer session. Thank you very much, Ross. Despite your nerves, you've done very well indeed. I'd like to thank Tom Ogilvie for helping us out today, and I'd also like to thank Ryley and Adam for helping us with the technicalities, because I'm sure otherwise this might not have happened. Ross, you've been a very popular player with your teammates and with the fans. You're a very unassuming and humble young man, and we wish you all the very best. You've been a credit to your family, a credit to your friends, and a credit to this club. And we would like to wish Stirling Albion all the very best in the remainder of this season, hopefully winning us promotion. Thanks very much.